empty the chamber on. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. We're back in pads on Tuesday edition. I'm so excited. Spring break is over. These guys get to go knock the mojitos and the tacos out of each other from spring break on Tuesday. Really excited. You know, the Jim Knowles defense in pads versus Justin Fry's offensive line will be exciting. A lot of you guys trying to win spots. It's easy to look pretty and have fun when you're running around in just jerseys, but man, you put the pads on, you get to find out who really likes to play football. So I'm super excited about that. But you know, I'm also excited about how we are growing. So I really, again, I appreciate the love. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for liking this video, commenting on this video, subscribing to our channel. Spread the word. I mean, it's noticeable. The surge has been unbelievable over the last month since we've been asking for this, and we can't do it without you guys. So thank you, gentlemen, gentlewomen. We appreciate you. Hope you guys enjoy this. And again, your comments are always great. I love the feedback. I love the constructive talk about, hey, maybe you should do this, maybe get it better, because we're just trying to tune this thing and make it as good as possible. And we love your input because we want to give you guys what you really want. So appreciate that. With that, I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevadabuck. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's great. It's been a great weekend of March Madness. A lot of great things happened this weekend. So it's and then we got pads going on Tuesday. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's always one of the best weeks of spring for evaluation is the first day of pads. Or the first day of pads is big, but it's like really that second week too. Like when guys are kind of into it, they're kind of a little beat up. They've gone through a scrimmage or two. It's always fun to see who really likes to play football, because this is a time of year where, you don't have a game to look forward to on Saturday. You don't have an end of camp. This is literally just like they're going to put the screws to you for the next 3 weeks and see what you got. So, and when you've got as much turnovers to do, it's going to be exciting to see how these guys focus and work on their new techniques and work on any, tweaks that Perry Eliano wants to do, Tim Walton wants to do, Jim Knowles, Justin Fry, any of the new young coaches that are, maybe quality control coaches that are helping coach the linebackers. Like, it's going to be real interesting to see who kind of rises to the top. So with that, I'm going to break out a new segment. So this is obviously something that's heavily influenced from PTI, but it's, we're just going to call it this, like the little scoop spot where we start the show off. We usually have about 4 topics, go through them real quick, for the hottest topics of the day. And I'm excited about this. So the number one topic always with us is offensive line recruiting. So there was a huge Under Armour camp today at Obitz, which is it's right over actually by where I work at Reichert Automotive. Huge complex, Obitz Fortress. The Under Armour Ohio version camp was in session, and Austin Spearfield and Ben Roebuck were there. They were actually named the camp MVPs today. Tavion Galloway was there. It's a Michigan offer. He's going to visit Ohio State on Tuesday. Was there. Just a lot of, good, talented kids. Ben does not have an Ohio State offer. I expect that to change pretty soon. Austin, super close with Stud and Kerry Combs, who both got let go. So he kind of had to recalibrate his recruiting. But, Nevada at this stage, it's so early. What are your thoughts initially on offensive line recruiting? Obviously, the transition from Stud to Justin Fry. Just what are your initial thoughts, at this point in the class? We've got Luke Montgomery, Josh Padilla, and, some young guys, they're going to be juniors rising around to start evaluating offering. What are your thoughts on the O-line recruiting thus far, and where do you see it going?
Well, I think it always, for me, O-line recruiting always starts in Ohio, and I think this is a particularly good year for offensive linemen in Ohio, which is a good thing for the Buckeyes. And I think Justin Fry is going to come in right away, establish these relationships. Very charismatic guy, high energy guy, fresh slate, hasn't done anything wrong. He's got nothing, there's no marks against him. And he's going to come in and I think he's going to really wow these guys. And you mentioned a couple of guys that will be visiting this week. This week's going to be, an active week for contact with some new players and for some players that are going to be getting a hard look coming out of this camp. And I think Justin Fry is really going to Yeah, I don't know if it's going to really improve the offensive line this year because I'm of the opinion the offensive line is going to take a slight step back, but I think overall recruiting intensity is going to increase. Justin's such a high energy guy. We've talked often about how he's the most ready to be a head coach at some point in the future, and I think he's got that kind of charisma and that kind of upward mobility. So I think he's going to do a great job for Ohio State, and I think it's going to. But like I said, it starts always in Ohio. And for me, we just recruited Ohio kids. I'd be just fine. We'd be missing out on some great ones, but we'd be just fine. And we got a good crop in Ohio this year, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, when you have a kid like Luke Montgomery, it always helps because you have a kid that can play left tackle. He's got the feet and the athleticism to do it. He's growing exponentially strength-wise. Looks fantastic. And then you've got Josh Padilla, typical tough Ohio anchor at center. Believe he's going to likely try to enroll early for spring ball because he said that this is his last wrestling season. So I imagine he's going to be there for winter workouts to get rolling and try to get into the two deep for the interior. Then you've got a kid like, you get Austin Steerville who's out here, and he reminds me of very, very, he's very, very much like Jack Mewhort in the way that he bends, his posture, his flexibility, his ankle flexion, very, very, very sturdy, very technically sound. He's from Lakota East, which, I'm not sure how many kids we've taken from Lakota East. Lakota West is the one where, it's for Steve Waring, Brandon Maupin, Solomon Thomas. We've had a lot of kids from Lakota West come through. Lakota East, not quite as many, but he, good looking kid, tough, he's interior guy all the way. I think he'd be a great add to the class. If we get those 3 Ohio kids, then that's a great start. Then you swing for some of the national guys for maybe the last 2 spots in particular. And again, like I talk to you all the time about how the recruiting is important, but it's never been less important because of the portal. Because some of these kids, you'll get them and you'll recruit them for 3 years and they'll commit and then they'll leave in a year. So it's, like I said, if I'm Justin Fry and I'm Mark Pantoni, I'm combing through, okay, who are the freshmen All-Americans from Bowling Green, from Florida International, from wherever, because, if Paris Johnson makes a jump and DeJuan makes a jump and all of a sudden you've got a couple tackle spots open, you can get a premium guy to show up and come play that position for you as a 1-year rental. So that's the thing that's going to completely change the game on the O-line. But when you've got Nick Petit-Frere and Thayer coming back at tackle, you're not going to have the kid from LSU that transferred to Kentucky want to consider Ohio State because those 2 spots are locked down. That's just kind of how the game is now. So another kid, Peyton Kirkland, we did not make his top 5, backed off on him. I think he's a decent player. I don't know what we're missing, but there's always a little level of concern. Nevada, just when you base off of, when a kid cuts his list down and Ohio State does not make it, and there's teams like Alabama, Oklahoma, Florida, and then for some reason Michigan State, does that ever raise an eyebrow to you? Do you ever have any questions about that when we don't make a top 5 and we lose out to some really premier teams?
Well, the first question that I have is, did we really back off it? Because you got to understand the way this works. As soon as a list comes out and Ohio State's not on it, then immediately the word comes out from Ohio State that they backed off the kid and that they're not interested in the kid. And so what I'm always trying to sort through is, did we really back off him? Or were we really not interested, or did we just get beat out? And I'm not sure if I have a determination, on this one, to see where we're exactly at. But I've seen this happen time and time again, especially when the big boys are involved. If Alabama's involved, then, I generally, they're not perfect, but they're pretty darn good at spotting talent. So, the idea that we would, stop recruiting a kid that has got a legitimate chance to go to Bama always just makes me kind of scratch my head and just make me ask questions 2, 3, and 4 just to get a little better answer.
Yeah, because I just think, sometimes it's just such a long road with recruiting, with the portal now, with coaching changes, with whatever. I think you got to keep some of these kids a little warmer than you'd expect. And, I think that's part of the game. Nobody thought we were going to get Dontre Wilson when we got him in 13. But, I mean, Chip Kelly leaves, and all of a sudden, the pipeline, that was riddled with dollars from Texas to Oregon, all of a sudden evaporated, and we got Dontre Wilson. Like, no, so it's like sometimes it's just interesting, because you never know how these kids are going to end up, how they're going to develop. I remember, the Florida Gators had a scouting report that said Trent Williams wasn't good enough to play for Florida. And the guy's making like $25 million a year to play left tackle in the NFL now. Kevin Wilson says the best football player he's ever seen. So, I mean, Kevin Wilson in Oklahoma thought he was good enough, but Florida didn't think he was good enough to offer. So sometimes beauty's in the eye of the beholder, the developer, the long-term potential. And it's just always fascinating. And O-line is so difficult to evaluate because we're going to go to our next topic. There's the big Under Armour campus today at Obetz, obviously. And, these camps they're kind of boondoggles because, you get to see the kids run around a little bit, you can see them compete a little bit. But, if do you really get to see true good-on-good competition at some of these? Because if the D-line group was not good today, the O-line group is pretty good. Some of these kids are dominating. Like, it's who are they beating? Are they really beating a guy that they're ever going to play against in the Big Ten? It's an invite-only camp. So, usually it's low MAC is kind of the bottom rung, maybe a D2, D3 kid. But, this was not a super high-end camp in terms of competition. And I don't know. Have you ever had any thoughts on these camps they're run by the shoe companies, Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, whatever, or Rivals or one of the recruiting sites, but they're not affiliated with the university. You have any thoughts on these? Because I've never been a huge fan of them. I mean, obviously something to do on a Sunday, but what are your thoughts on these, Nevada?
Yeah, I think, for the premier kids, if I was a premier kid, I would never go to something like this because I don't know how it could possibly help you. You know what I'm saying? I just don't know how it could possibly help you. But, with college, it's all about college exposure. And from having had a little experience of this firsthand with my kids and camps and things like that, you just got to kind of separate what are the boondoggle camps, what are the the cash grab camp, what are the t-shirt camps, and which ones are really the college coaches going to, where are you really going to get noticed, where you're really going to get seen. And I think that's the whole key to the camp circuit. People have to remember the camp circuit's a big moneymaker too, and people are making an awful lot of money in these camps. And so, from a recruiting standpoint, you just gotta kind of sort through the wheat and the chaff and figure out which of the camps where the coaches are going to be and where they're really going to get a chance to see the kids up close and personal. Those are the ones where I pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, I think that at the absolute most, the one bit of value you could get from these camps is you do kind of get familiar with a lot of the drills that go on at the college. You're running the 40 and the pro shuttle, and you're doing one-on-one pass rush, and you're doing a bunch of drills. And so, I mean, I think that like some of that familiarity can help you just because you're used to it by the time you go to Ohio State or Oklahoma or Bama. It's not like your first time experiencing, what a camp feels like on your body. But I also, like if I'm a kid that's committed, it was like, and obviously I played in the Stone Age in like 2002 when I was camping, but like I never saw Louis Irizarry at a camp. Like, I mean, Louis, he had the Ohio State offer, never saw David Patterson at a camp. He had the Ohio State offer, stayed home. So I mean, like the guys that are like competing for offers, you have to go to like the school that you want to get offered by his camp. That's just kind of mandated. I remember I felt like Brian Hartline camped for like 20 straight days at Ohio State to get his offer because we had to keep going back and they had to keep looking at Hart, and he was super competitive, but was he good enough? And so he just kept roasting guys in one-on-ones, and they finally offered the kid, and he committed. And it was nice that he committed because he broke his leg at his first fall scrimmage his senior year, and I was glad he committed early because I mean, who knows what would happen if he'd have broken his leg and had not been committed. But it was a good story. But yeah, I don't know. These camps, there's something to do on a Sunday, but I mean, there's kids driving 4 hours, flying across the country for these things, and I'm like, man, it's just for what? I get to, you want to go to the Under Armour All-American game and stuff, but those things are, it's I mean, you want to get to college. You want to get to college, and you want to get going in that system, and that's what's going to make or break you. So, huge day, obviously Tuesday. These guys have been on spring break, so they've been all over the country. They've actually been all over the world. We had guys that left the country to go on spring break. So different world with the NIL, baby. But these guys are, they're back at it, man. They got to knock the mojitos off and the nachos and the cheese dip and all the stuff they've been doing for the last 10 days. And that stuff's going to be coming out of their pores on Tuesday. They put the pads on. Nevada, so much turnover on staff, so many new jobs on the line. What are you most excited to get intel on in this first pad of practice, this first week of full pads? Just what are your initial thoughts on what you're expecting and hoping to hear?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot. I think for me, if I had to boil it down to one thing, it's going to be who are the kids that have really studied and know the Knowles defense, because, Knowles coming in and kind of revamping things is really big. He gave those guys, while they were on spring break, he gave them some assignments, and part of the assignments are know the defense. So we're going to find out this week who knows the defense, who's really studied the positions, who's fitted for these positions. We've talked about how this is a safety centric defense and really kind of features the safeties. And I think that's the thing that I'm most interested in seeing is who's done their homework during the off season, who's doing their homework over the spring break, and who's ready to play and ready to fit into the Jim Knowles OSU defense.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what kids wore out the young coaches, the quality control coaches, the GAs. It's the culture's different. It's more on rails now than it was in 2012. Last year I was working with Urban, but 2012 I didn't go on a spring break. I was in the office every day. A lot of coaches were gone, but I was in there every day because I was paranoid because Taylor Decker was graduating early for spring quarter. So he wasn't there for winter quarters. Back when we were on quarters, we were just getting ready to switch to semesters. And so he had to practice on like Tuesday as our second team right tackle. And, if a kid shows up on Tuesday and doesn't know the cadence, the plays, and they're throwing him in there. It's not like, oh, hey, let's go walk through it and take it easy on Taylor. It's like, no, he's like second team right tackle the first day of practice. So it's like, I spent an inordinate amount of time getting him ready to go so that he wouldn't be scared or unprepared or whatever. And that takes a lot of time for a high school kid to learn a college offense quick. And it was funny because the only other guy that was in the building when I was there was Urban. And he noticed that, oh my God, this guy's in here grinding and working this kid. And TD, bless his heart, retained everything. He was a genius. I was so lucky I had Jacoby Bourne, Corey Lindsley, Norwell, those guys knew their stuff and they were really sharp guys. So they're all pros. So they've all made millions because they're pros. They know their stuff. And God bless Taylor Decker, man, because that kid, he came in as an 18-year-old and held his own, grew, turned into a first-round pick. But that was my spring break in 12, so it was a blast. So our last thing is going to be a little bit of it's an exciting thing for us. Obviously, Nevada. You and I, we know Coach Muzz probably better than anyone in the media sphere. I would say I've spent a lot of time talking to Coach Muzz. Coach Muzz took over a program that was not very good, and now they are the best. So, any thoughts on Coach Muzz and the Lady Bucks winning the national championship today?
Yeah, it's really a huge step forward. I mean, they talked about how Ohio State, this is their first national championship ever, and ice hockey's been dominated by the Minnesotas and the Wisconsins of the world, and for Ohio State to come in and do it, it's really, it's kind of shocking. And they did it. For anybody who had the pleasure of watching the game, it's a close game, 3-2, but Ohio State really dominated, outshot them 19-3 in the second period, really carried the action. It wasn't for a couple of fluke goals. The game wouldn't even have been close. They were dominant. They came in as the number one seed. They dominated from beginning to the season. They were the highest scoring team in women's hockey. And like I said, I just can't say enough good things about the entire staff and what Coach Muzz has done for Ohio State women's hockey. It's amazing. And for those people who haven't watched women's hockey, I'm telling you, it's a great game. I mean, there's not checking, but there's hitting. And body contact's allowed, so you can, it's a very high tempo game. It's up and down. It's like all the best attributes of skilled hockey, and without too much heavy body contact and slowing the game down. So it's a really pleasing game to the eye to watch, and Ohio State's playing it better than anybody.
Yeah, and you're right. Like just from watching, the Olympic hockey is obviously the pinnacle of women's hockey. Watching Team Canada, Team USA. The rivalry they have, it's fantastic. And obviously, we've grown to love women's hockey, and it's just something that we're excited about for Ohio State. I mean, first ever national championship. Coach Muzz is a class act. And, now it's the only scary thing has been when a girl like this wins the national championship, or any coach, it's like, and she's not born and bred in Ohio, man, we better pony up and keep her here because, like, you know, she's going to be the hottest name on the block for any program that's looking to turn their program around. And, you know, I don't know how much we support women's hockey with the athletic department, but we better tune it up a little bit because there's going to be people coming after Coach Muzz now. So with that, we close that out, and we are going to switch gears. So we have a gigantic right tackle out of St. Ed's and Ben Roebuck, who we're going to do a quick evaluation on. Nevada, the last giant tackle we got from St. Ed's was Alex Boone, my former teammate. A great player, great kid. You know, I played with Alex, super talented kid, played a long time in the NFL. What are your initial thoughts on you know, Booney? I mean, Ben's a 6'8" road grader. We're gonna watch some of his tape, but you know, initial thoughts. You know, we need tackles. This kid is a tackle all the way. But just your thoughts on Ben Roebuck.
Well, I think he's a guy that Ohio State's taken a hard look at, and he's got some attributes that Ohio State really likes. I mean, he's tough. He's got great strength. He's got great bend. Ohio State really, I think he's high on Ohio State's recruiting board right now, and I think he's a kid that's he's gonna get a lot of consideration from Ohio State, and I think things are gonna heat up for him really, really shortly. And he's a guy that I'm excited about. He's a guy that I have actually in this class, so that's how good I think he is.
Yeah, I don't think that's a reach at all. I mean, here he is. You know, he plays as good a ball as you can play. I mean, St. Ed's won the Division I state championship. Here they are playing Hoban. You know, these guys play. I mean, every week they're playing a big time team. So there's no question on the competition. He's only a sophomore, so he's just a baby basically, and he is an absolute beast. He's a mauler. Watch this real quick. Gets his hands on you, it's a wrap. It's over. You know, I think he's probably more of a right tackle mauler than a left tackle at this point. It'll be interesting to see if they flop him this year as a junior. But you know, these kids, they're just so, I mean, for a right tackle to be 6'8", 320 already, it's like genetically these kids they're just fantastic. I mean, I was a young 210-pound sophomore at this point in my career, and this kid's starting varsity, winning a state championship. You know, and again, like his growth is just unbelievable. How big he is, you know, for that age, and you know, and I think the amount of strength and fluidity he's going to get over the next 2 years will be fascinating because, you know, he, like I said, he's only going to be a junior this year, which is scary. So he's going to be a big old monster, and I'm excited to watch him. But yeah, who are some of your favorite offensive line recruits that we've had over the years that you were really excited about getting?
Well, I remember a kid that was a tight end named Kirk Barton that I really was excited about. Well, again, I remember talking to Bill Green the day that you got offered and the commitment, and he wasn't even that familiar with you at the time. That's how unheralded you were, which is really kind of it's one of my favorite stories because for you to come in and end up as an All-American, an NFL player, and you know, kind of unheralded. So the offensive line, like you said, they're late bloomers always. You know, it's a fun position, and that's why I think you've got to be really careful about projecting from. It's probably the hardest position to project from high school to college because you just never know. You don't know who the big kids beating up on the little kids, or kids beating up on bad competition. And you know, for me, that's why I'm always looking at level. You know, who are they playing against? Yeah. You know, what's the pedigree of the school that they, you know, have they put out guys before? And for me, that's like one of the biggest things that I'm looking at when I'm trying to evaluate an offensive lineman and how good they're going to be.
Yeah, and something that's hard to evaluate when you're, you know, a kid like this who, you know, he looks like an NFL player and he's, you know, a young kid, is like, man, his mental capacity, his mental makeup, because, you know, these kids, they're actually going to go against guys that can beat them at Ohio State. You know, when you're this big and this talented in high school, nobody's going to beat you. I mean, nobody from Ignatius is going to beat you. I mean, nobody from Hoban's going to beat you. There might be one guy on your entire schedule that could even give you a problem. But you get to Ohio State, man, you're blocking like Sam Hubbard, Tyquan Lewis, Nicky Bosa. Like, I mean, like, you know, it was like the thing with Thayer Munford is like, I mean, Thayer, he had to figure it out real fast because every day in practice, he had to see Nick Bosa or Chase Young every day. So, I mean, you know, there's some kids that flat out can't handle that. There's some kids that they get into that realm and it's too hard, it's too tough. Mentally, they kind of collapse, and I've seen it. I mean, I've seen guys that, it's like when you see a pitcher get the yips, or you see a guy that can't snap the football or whatever. It's a tough gig, man. So, but no, I'm excited about this kid. I think he's got a bright future. Again, he just mauls kids, and the thing is when you're this big and this powerful, all he can do is dominate. So I mean, he doesn't get to pick who he plays against, but he can just keep throwing him on the ground, dumping him on the ground, dominating them, and you got to see domination when you're a kid that's on the radar for Ohio State. Like we talked about it at the running back position, talked about it offensive line. If you're out there, you better be dominating if Ohio State's going to be considering you. And this kid does it. I mean, you see every play he's throwing guys on the ground. And again, this is just him as a sophomore. So as a junior, it's going to be insane to watch this kid, and I'm excited about it. So with that being said, do you got him in the class, Nevada? I think he's gonna be a Buckeye. I want to be.
I think he's gonna be a premier piece in the class. I think he's gonna be a foundational piece, and he's one of those kids that you just like. I mean, how are you gonna go wrong on a kid like this playing at a program like that with this type of size, with this type of mobility, with that kind of nasty? It's just it seems like your miss percentage on a kid like this has got to be really, really low. So.
Yeah, I mean, a class of 24 kid, man, it's just crazy. Like, you see how big he is and how physical he is and how powerful he is, and you're just like, is he really in the class of 24? Or did I have a mind, my mind meld, and he's really, because he's just he looks like he's going to be a senior. He's not going to be a junior. And that's the crazy thing about these kids, man, is they've got great training. They've got great diets. They're different beasts at this point. So, with that, man, I'm going to wrap this show. This was a great one. I appreciate you, Nevada. We're going to get on the scoop now, baby. So I appreciate all of you people that are supporting these videos. These things are so fun to do. We have a blast. Again, comment, leave us a like. We appreciate the likes. We love the comments. I try to respond to every single comment just because, I think it's good to show how much I appreciate you guys supporting us. We are growing like a weed. If you need to know what's going on inside the Woody Hayes, got to join BuckeyeScoop.com. We have the most active message board in the industry. We have expertise. We have amazing intel coming in. I can't wait for Tuesday. Can't wait for after Tuesday, frankly, to get a little bit of what really happened in practice today. I know that Ryan Day and Mickey Marotti are turning up the heat on these guys, so it is not going to be for the faint of heart. So I can't wait to hear some of these stories about Tuesday, circle drill, some of the manhood drills they do where they put guys one-on-one and have them crash into each other a little bit. Like, those are always the best, and they're always fun to see who cowers in fear and who steps up to the plate. So I'm excited about it, but appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much. I'll see you on BuckeyeScoop.com. Thank you, Buckeye Nation. You guys have a great day.